Bowling.
You're all set.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special meeting, the Board of Ed facilities meeting. Today is February 28th. Can't believe it's the last day of February. Time is flying by. The time is now 4:32. And with me this evening, I have Board of Education Chair Colin Hostin, Board Member Sherelle Harris, and Board Member Kara Bakey. So today we'll be discussing two items. The first item is the acceptance of the Pona School Improvement Project as complete. Let me see here. And Alan Lowe, you're up next, correct?
Yes.
All right, if you can explain to the public, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Alan Lowe on behalf of the City of Norwalk. I'm submitting to the board facility committee today for the acceptance of Pona School improvement projects that's completed probably about a year and a half ago now, roughly. I think the project it's about $44 million, included the renovation existing building as well as the addition of a lower Pona School. We probably finished that about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, but for last year, we've been actually using it for a swing space for Jefferson School so that we have ability to renovate Jefferson while we move the kids onto the lowest Pona School. The project has been completed and the state requires to get formal approval by the Board of Education so that we can proceed with getting reimbursement from the state. And attached to my memo, there's a letter from the principal of the school recognizing that we have completed the task that we set out to do in terms of the renovation and the new construction. As you know, we're looking to put Jefferson School is scheduled to be finished by this summer, and we anticipated we will be moving Jefferson back to the existing Jefferson School starting of the fall semester of this year. Therefore, against part of that schedule is to move the Columbus School kids into this new school. And I think the name is going to be different. Superintendent is here. So, so we just want to go through the board for approval so that we can approach the state to get reimbursement for the city gets, I believe it's 22% on, well, actually this is a renovation project. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. It's 33% reimbursement for this project. The state has this policy about new construction is only 10% less, which is 23%. But this is a renovation existing school. The existing building is not renovated as new. It's a partial renovation. So only certain item is eligible for reimbursement. I think that's about it. If any question, I'm here to answer any question you have.
Thank you, Alan. Dr. Stria, did you want to say anything on that project?
I think Alan articulated all the essential elements.
Thank you.
There's nothing to say.
Any
That's
other?
pretty exciting though that
It is.
Jefferson will be finished. Oh my gosh. That's huge.
I'm looking forward to actually walking through that school and seeing it finished.
The last time we were there, we had the hard hat,
Right, hard hats, vests,
hard
everything.
hats. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we're not talking about Jefferson, but yeah, it is coming along. We struggled through last couple of months with a little bit of COVID issues about construction workers missing some time, but we're catching up. We are scheduled to finish. We are probably 2 weeks late, so we're looking to finish probably beginning of June, the middle of June.
Alan, we're back on schedule as of today.
Oh, okay, well, see.
Sorry, I know it's breaking news.
So we are looking to finish, generally speaking, I don't want to commit to anything, but at the same time, June, beginning of June is our schedule. And then we get furniture delivery for month of July or late June to middle of July. So everything be set up so that we be ready to move Jefferson back. And soon enough, we'll be reaching out to Jefferson. I think Jefferson's We did actually do a meeting with Jefferson parents about a couple of weeks ago, and we have actually did a presentation to them so that they are aware of what's going on, and then about them moving back to Jefferson School. And I think Jefferson, yeah, and then we moved further, and then we're going to be working with the Jefferson teachers to get them boxes so they can move their belongings back. They don't have to bring anything back except their personal belongings, because the school is going to be all fully furnished by the time they get there. So, which is a good thing, because the Columbus School will be using the furniture at Lower Ponus.
Correct.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the members? Nope.
Not a
Okay,
question, just a celebration. This is always the best part when we get to the end.
Right.
You know, we spent a lot of time talking about these capital plans over time, and it's you know, it's really great to see them coming to fruition, and just a huge kudos to the entire team. I know it's not easy.
Yeah,
Thank
Jefferson
you
is
to
about
everybody.
$33 million. We were also recently finished, but we went into some, so they call it supply chain issue of narrow mix school. We have everything finished except the electric panel. There's some switches will come in. It's been late for about 2 months, so we're struggling with that. But the generally speaking, at the cafeteria and the kitchen is all ready, but we just don't have the electrical panel. So we are struggling with the manufacturer. They're scheduled to deliver this, I believe, this Friday. They said they were supposed to deliver 2 weeks ago, but they still haven't done it yet. So,
Yep.
but
Yeah,
we are
we're-
pushing very hard.
We're expecting some deliveries Friday and I believe Monday, if I'm not mistaken.
So
that's great.
Mhm.
So thank you for that. Yes,
I'm sorry, just quickly getting back to Jefferson. When Alan delivers it substantially complete, the Board of Ed will be then begin the process of installing solar panels on the roof. So we hope to have the solar panels up and in place by the time the students return in the fall.
that's great news. Thank you. All right, so if I can get a motion to accept the Ponus School project as complete and
So
move it to the
moved.
full board. Motion accepted by Sherelle, second.
Second it.
Okay, second by Colin. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. And Alan gives 2 thumbs up.
double thumbs up.
All right. So our next topic on our agenda is the discussion of construction of the new Norwalk High School. So again, Alan, I'm going to pass it over to you to discuss
Yeah.
the topic.
Yeah, I want to first, by start, talk about a little bit of history. I know everybody's seen the presentation probably more than once. And also involved in a couple of the public meetings that we had since the last time. We have a facility committee and land use and building management committee of council joint meeting. I think the little bit of history here is that back in 2006, 2007, we renovated Norwalk High School. We spent the city combined, city, Board of Education, city combined, spent $42 million renovating Norwalk High School. The work included co-update, safety update, new mechanical system. We created a new science wing, which has like 8 science classroom. I think it's called the band room, which is a music wing, a little extension to the building. Replaced windows. We did all that for $42 million. This is back, was probably like 16 years ago. And at that point, we barely had enough money to do a little bit improvement in the lobby. At that time, the parents were really pushing us to do some improvement, aesthetic improvement. We just ran out of money at that point, even at $42 million at the time. So when you see the lobby, basically we did some new tile, new lighting. That's basically it, kind of generally speaking. For the last 8 years or so, there have been a lot of requests from parents of Norwalk High School to support some improvement to Norwalk High School. At the request of Board of Education, the city funded $5 million and later on funded an additional $6.5 million to improvement. We did a number of smaller projects, including elevator improvement. We painted the building. We did some work in the auditorium. and some kitchen area. We did some chiller things, a little bit of structural replacement, and various miscellaneous projects. At the time, we approached the state for additional reimbursement projects to do some other work. And the state had came to us at that time and suggest that they were not interested in continue doing a little project here. They were concerned that we're spending good money after bad money because we got all these projects lining up and all. They want us to look at a new building. And that's where the genesis of this new project came about, a new school. We told them that the city does not have financial capability to support a multi-million dollar project. And the state came back with an offer that with PTAP program, we are able to tap into some special legislation that we can potentially get 80% reimbursement, which is unheard of for the city of Norwalk. Our reimbursement is 32 point something percent, and new construction is 22.3%. I think that's what it is. For 80% reimbursement, we never got that before. So it's something that's very interesting to the city. At the same time, it's kind of, for us, it's kind of once a lifetime opportunity kind of thing. So we looked at it seriously and we went through some study and evaluation. We came up with a budget of $225 million. 80% reimbursement, we roughly, the city contribution about $50 million. So the city went ahead and allocated $50 million for this project, for the city's share. And when we submitted to the state came back and recommended only $189 million. Because of that difference, we have the staff to find ways to kind of make it work. We did some value engineering at the time. We do not have designs or anything, but we look at it and see how we can save some money here and there. We decided to keep the existing science wing since it's only about 10, 15 years old, but renovate it. So that saved a few bucks. We also look at temporarily taking the pool out of the project so that the pool is worth about $8 to $9 million. So we took it up and we kept it in the project as I think the architecture term is ad alternate, but it doesn't mean that it's limited. It's just that we want to design the building so that the pool is incorporated into the design, but has the ability, in case there's no money available, that we have the ability to not to build it and build it later on. So all the utility we hook up to that portion of the building, and a simple add-on instead of the middle of the building, and then you have to build it and not have to. So we put it at the end of the building, so we have the flexibility. So we called it an alternate item, but overall, we intend to build this pool all along. So it is our city's strategy and goal to find money to make this happen. So it's not like something that we recognize that this is an important component of this project to the community, and we intend to build this. So it's, again, the word alternate sounds like it's maybe it will happen. We are committed to make it happen. We will continue to seek state money, local money, as well as private money to make it work. So overall, it's about $8 to $9 million that we are seeking. So that's for the pool. So with all this, with the project moving forward, we started the design of this project probably about 9 months ago. I think there's some comment recently about, why do we not get the public involved earlier and things like that. I think when to get the community involved, it's a very interesting question. I think we have to develop the design enough so that we can respond to the public accordingly. So we don't want to sit down and say, oh, by the way, we're building this. And the comment comes out, what are you building? So, well, we can't say we don't know, right? So we have to develop to a certain degree. As we developed the project on the phase project, we realized the cost of the project, it's quite high, to the point that we want to revisit the opportunity to build a new building on the football field. And that hence the two options. Both options, it's not like, if you look at this existing the property, there's a school building, there's a softball field, there's a parking lot, and the football field. There isn't too many options to rotate to where to put what. We look at all those options, and we look at within each option, we look at probably around 8 kind of layout options of where to put the science wing, where to put the gym or auditorium and things like that. But within those space relationship within the property, there's only so limited ability to put where the building is going to be. So the original, the option A is really it's a phased improvement project. What that means is that we build a new building, tear down an old portion of old building, build another new building, tore down another portion of old building, and build another building. The task of doing that, the cost and the impact on education, I use the word impact, it's disruption in terms of education is substantial. It's something that we are prepared to handle, but at the same time that there's impact on day-to-day operation of the building because the classes get to be moved different places and all that. And during construction, we got to put temporary walkway between building. You got to deal with elevators. If you get rid of the elevators, that portion of the building no longer ADA compliance. So there's a number of issues that we need to deal with, including noise and vibration of the building. So the other alternative is option B, which is putting the building onto the football field. Originally, we thought the cost difference about $9 million. As we look at it now, it's about $3 million, $3 million difference in price. It's a little bit more expensive of option, but at the same time is that it eliminates our need to do this phased construction. So the existing building would not be touched. So all the education function will continue as is. We will impact the parking somewhat. And the thing that will impact is actually sports. Since our last meeting with our facility committee and planning, land use and building management committee, we had a number of meetings with Doug, as well as John from athletic director from Brian McMahon High School, to develop strategy how we can potentially solve and minimize this impact. We had talked many times. We probably have 4 meetings already, kind of thing. And also we talked to Joanna from Transportation Board of Ed to talk about how to bring kids from the school to the offsite location. We are developing different strategy. I don't have a plan for you today, but at the same time, it is an ongoing conversation. There's a lot of good ideas that flow back and forth among ourselves. And I think Doug is here to talk about it a little bit. At the same time is that we do believe that we have ways to address all of the concerns, including because some activities it's actually practice and stuff happens on Nathan Hale now. West Rock is a potential location for us to take up some of the other sports, and we can make that a home field with signage and stuff, big banners and things that kind of showcase it as a home court. So you do feel as a lower high school facility instead of just a park in the neighborhood kind of thing. There's different things we can address so that the student can feel this is their home base. Certain thing we don't have any choices. I think football for those home game, I think you got 5 or 6 home games a year. That would be a Brian McMahon. So that's not a kind of choice. Tennis, we're potentially looking at Oak Hills. I think they have 8 courts if I'm not mistaken, and all highs need 6. So it's something that the city and Oak Hills need to work out, and then we'll figure out transportation to get the kid there every day. The most difficult one that we encounter is actually track. Currently, we're looking at 3 options. One is it's McMahon. We recognize that there are 2 issues there. The first one is that's a lot of kids to put on one track at one time, but at the same time, you can stagger the schedule somewhat. The other issue with McMahon is the other sports that get played, field hockey and lacrosse in the middle of the track. So then if we do it there, we need some type of safety fencing. So that's something we talk about and we're considering as one option. And we also talk about with McMahon is that potentially we are looking at on the outside possibility that we would turf Roten Field so that we can move a field hockey or lacrosse over there. But a artificial turf field is very expensive. It's probably $1.3 million to do. So it's something we talked about, but financially it's not feasible at this point. The other thing we can do is we can look for another track. One of the places it's Pona School that has came up as a possible option, and also another track on another different location next to nearby West Rock. It's another place that we are considering. I don't want to mention it because we haven't approached the property owner yet. But at the same time, there's a track there that nearby, but it's not to current conditions, so we need to upgrade. So those are the things that we've been talking about. And Doug is here if you want to kind of ask him some question about the sports aspect of it. The last one I'll talk a little bit about is actually King Street. Number of neighbors has come up and raised concern about King Street entrance. Option 2 talks about a bus drop-off coming from King Street into the property. We recognize that that's going to be a staggered schedule with a Narragansett school. But at the same time, is that the neighbors are very concerned about bringing traffic on that into that street and stuff. Our design team had looked at 7 different options, and working with Joanna, we have looked at some of these options, and some of these are very feasible. So we believe we can. What we intend to do is we intend to meet the neighbors probably within the next 2 weeks and start talking about how we can, if not eliminate, would be substantially minimize any use of any entrance on King Street. So there's ways we can manage this. We never intended to use the King Street as a parent drop-off. So it's not like parent will be waiting on the street and pick up kids. It's really intended originally. It's really intended to just bring the buses in, so alleviate some of the traffic on Strawberry Hill and County Street, and also so that the student parent drop-off and pick up wouldn't crosses the bus route. So that's the reason we want to bring the buses from a different street. So they would come in and come back out, and that's all we're going to use the entrance for. But since there's opposition to using the entrance for bus purposes, we would consider putting through the parking lot, and there will be crossing between the parent drop-off and the buses. But we can design this so that we can manage that with security guard, and it only happens once in the morning, once in the afternoon. So there are ways we can manage the operation internally, but there would be minimum crossing between parent drop-off and bus drop-off. So I think we can meet with the neighbors probably starting next week to start looking at these options to get the comfort level in terms of how we are trying to respond to their requests and concerns. With that, I think I'm done. I'm just blathering up. Jim, do you have anything to add? And Doug, please.
No, Alan, you handled that pretty thoroughly. The only thing I would add is that, Ken Hughes has also been a part of those meetings that we've had in working with Doug and John from Brian McMahon. Good discussions, and I know Joanna has looked into busing. So things, as Alan said, it's not finalized yet, but we are making progress, and things are looking good in terms of optional practice areas.
Alan, if I may, the approach you just described up at Norwalk High is very similar to Cranberry, which is going to start before you know it, and that is build anew and then remove the old. You're planning, or you're proposing to do the same thought process at Norwalk High. I just want to point that out.
All right, so I'm going to start. I know you said, Bill, that it's the same as Cranberry, but it's not. I want to know, how much did we spend on those fields replacing the football field and the tennis courts?
I think fundamentally, every time we renovate a field, just the turf side, it's about $500,000. Excuse me. I think for any school property, we will continue. The city and the Board of Education will continue to do improvement. We're hoping we can continue to do improvement. So there's no good time. If you have a project that planned for like 6 years from now, we wouldn't spend any money into those facilities. So we'll hold back. This project was done prior to this project came about. So there's no question we replaced a turf field probably about 2 years ago, Ken, 2-3 years ago, and tennis court about 2 years ago. So we're looking, by the time we start this, it will be a year and a half from now, or 2 years from now, generally speaking. So yes, I think sometimes it's just like the building. We are asked to put a new building on to construct a new building. We did the addition of the science wing back in 2007. So it's only about 16 years. So I think we are tasked all the time to continue to maintain and improve our facility. So every time you build a building, there's a lot of time, there's some money that could better work wasted, because to the extent that if there's a project plan 6 years from now, we wouldn't be, if we knew back then, we wouldn't be doing the football field, we wouldn't do the tennis courts. So it's a nature of continue our efforts in maintaining these properties and schools. So again, sometimes like the roof is done, no high school roof is done in 2003. So it's about 20 years, that's a 25, 30 years roof. So there's still life in the roof. But at the same time is that mechanical system, we put $42 million in back in 2006. So that's about what, 15, 20 years now, almost, by the time we start this project. So there's again, we can't let the building run down to the point that we can operate it and then do improvements, just as the site is. So.
And in total
unfortunate.
between the fields, the paint, and the kitchen, that was, close, that was recent. We did a lot.
We spent $5 million or
improvement.
so. We also did a culinary arts, that's brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's altogether, those three things is probably, the field is probably $500,000, but that didn't come out of this budget, it come out of POP's budget. Doesn't mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's not real money, it's real
Right,
money.
but I need to get a total.
Right,
a
so on the
number.
city side, on the funding that went to Board of Education that we as on behalf of city spent for school construction, it's about $5 million we spent.
And
So
is
we
that
did the
including-
culinary arts.
Is that including the tennis courts?
No.
You're talking about the fact, and the tennis courts?
No,
Do you have a number for them?
I don't have Ken may have the number for a tennis court. I know the football field, generally speaking, I think a field generally speaking is about $500 million, $460 to $500 million. Right?
Alan,
Ken?
I do. The tennis courts, we did the post-tension concrete, they were around 550.
And the field is probably about 460 to 500, somewhere around there.
Just around 500, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll let someone else ask question. Anybody? Kara?
Yeah, sure. So I'm curious to get more information about the traffic patterns, specifically on King Street. And I know that a lot of people have been asking about the traffic study. And so I'm wondering what the status of that is. And then, I heard you mentioning, kind of this idea of there being a crosswalk between buses and parental pickups and that kind of thing. But as I'm thinking this through, I'm also thinking to myself that the traffic is going to be even more significant, especially at the end of the day, because students could potentially be driving themselves to their after-school sports at all of these other locations in the city. So we're going to be adding to our traffic pattern for the kids who have their licenses, right? So the traffic part of this overall is definitely of concern. I'm also wondering, what kind of conversations so far have happened with the neighbors on King Street. My kids both went through Narragansett, and so I'm very familiar with how congested that street gets. And so really what kind of, more targeted outreach has been done for those families over there? I know a lot of them have reached out and been pretty vocal.
Okay. First thing is we have received various comments from neighbors. Those are emails that come in. We had to figure out a way to centralize it and respond to them. So if somebody sent in, in case somebody's watching this, if you send an email in, sometimes you send it to the board, or sometimes you send it to the mayor, or something. I don't get it, right? So I think you should always CC me so that we can collectively collect all of this and respond accordingly. We've been receiving emails. We have not, generally speaking, responded. Some individual from board council members or board member may respond to individual who responded. But I think that's, to my point before, was that I intend to start a conversation with neighbors in King Street, because I want to talk to them when we have ideas in hand to solve the issues. I don't want to just sit down with them and say, by the way, what are your concerns? I think we know what the concerns are. It's traffic and buses and everything else. And as minimum, I think we are trying to do in terms of impact, but it's something that is not acceptable to neighbors. So we took the time in the last couple of weeks to develop strategy to the extent of minimizing or eliminated the need of the entrance. But I think we were always going to have an emergency egress because of fire department requires to get easy way in and out of the around the building for emergency. So I think we're always going to have an emergency egress. So I don't think the neighbor would be. I think that's a necessary need for the facility. But I think we are in a position to talk to the neighbor constructively, to respond to their concern, to give them scenarios to look at, so that this would not be impact on the neighbors. So we are prepared to do that. And we don't have a traffic study yet. We haven't reached the point of design these things to a point that we can get a traffic study yet. But if we don't put a driveway in there except for emergency vehicle, there should not be any impact at all.
So I feel like both of those things should have already been done, that community right there should have already been drawn into these conversations. I think that the feeling right now in the community is that, the train has left the station and it's running full steam, and that they haven't had an opportunity to really voice their concerns for their neighborhood there, for their kids' safety. A lot of their kids walk home from school. So I would like some kind of plan or commitment to allow for those neighbors to have a strong voice in these conversations. And then also on the traffic study, what is the plan for that? Has it been, contracted? Like, what is the status? I thought we would have seen something by now. What was the actual status of that?
The traffic study happens only after the design has been developed. So right now,
how are we to choose A or B if we don't know what the traffic studies are telling us about the two options?
And can I just ask a quick question that's related to that? So, are we changing? So we're combining where the parent drop off and the buses are. Is that going to still be on King Street?
No.
So it's going to be moved over to the Strawberry Hill side?
I think there's the reason why we look at on the option B, the reason why we look at putting entrance to is help to reduces the traffic parent on County Street and also on Strawberry Hill by providing another means of getting cars and buses onto the property. So instead of putting all the burden on County or Strawberry Hill, we want to break it up a little bit so that we have more flexibility and reduces the volume overall. But what we bring to on King Street is really just the buses coming originally. What we plan to just bring the buses in, they come in, they stay in the property and leave. That's it. So it's not like a drop-off kind of activity where parents drop off and the cars waiting all over the place kind of thing. So it's really a controlled kind of activity that we're planning to. But since it's not something that the neighbor would like to see, we are looking at ways to, instead of have buses coming in on King Street, we will have them come in either Strawberry Hill, most likely from Strawberry Hill, comes to the property, but somewhere along the line, there's a good possibility that they would, the buses, when they come in, they would cross the traffic or parent drop off. And we got to do it in a way that we can manage it by the security guard. So we're looking at ways we can handle it. I think it's manageable, but it creates that need to traffic crossing each other. It's exactly what we're concerned about, that we're trying to avoid that to the extent possible, but we can't bring buses in a different location, then we would have to figure a way to manage it within the property.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the buses, the original plan was to only have the buses enter on King Street and they would exit on County. So they weren't entering and exiting on King. They were only entering on King. They would drop off their students. There was a loop and they would go back out on County. But again, as Alan said, as because of the concerns of the residents, we're looking at another option that we did review with Joanna and the design team. And if that's satisfactory, then that option would be brought to a traffic for a traffic analysis for a traffic study.
And what is the timing of that?
That
This
would
traffic
be
study? I mean,
that would be after, I think Alan, like he said, wanted to meet with the neighbors. We're going to review our most recent option that we were looking at. And, if everybody's satisfied with that, most likely soon after that, I would have to defer to Castle Booze as to when that would get out to the traffic study consultant.
But there is a possibility that that none of that will be on King Street, that it would be
Yes.
rerouted. Okay.
Correct.
Alan, can I just jump in real quick?
Sure.
So on the several options that we discussed, the traffic will continue almost in a similar pattern as it is now. Buses will come in possibly off of Strawberry Hill and will drop off and pick up at the back of the building and then exit out of County Street. Parents would come in the opposite direction. So they would not be crossing at the exact same time where they would be in the same flow of traffic. So buses would go in one way and out one way. Parent traffic would go in one way and out one way. The only two places that they might be in the same traffic pattern would be the crossing of the cars with the buses, where we would have it controlled by security. So there would be some traffic controls out there. So King Street would not be used for buses.
so King Street is only for parent drop off,
No.
No,
pickup, or?
no,
King Street is not for is for emergency egress only.
right.
Did that change? Because I
Yeah.
thought that was the entrance of the buses.
I thought I heard something different before.
That's,
Yeah, it did change. Yes.
After
So
we
once
started to review,
after-
right. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Jim.
I'm sorry, after we had the initial presentation, we understood that there were some concerns from King Street residents, and that prompted the design team to look at other options to keep traffic off of King Street. And we took, I think there were 6 or 7 options, and we reviewed those with Joanna and came up with 7.5, I guess, if you want to call it, and a variation of one of the options that kept both bus and parent traffic off of King Street. But we are, again, as Alan said, due to the need to get around the building in case of emergency, there would be an egress or access drive still on King Street that would be gated and only used in an emergency situation.
okay, so we really don't know which way they're going in. So we don't know.
They're not going in on King Street, Diana.
Right, but we don't know the drawing of where it's going to go, what you
Right,
guys
yeah.
are looking at.
Correct, because again, the 7 options that we looked at, we had another variation of one of those options.
And those 7 options are for which plan?
B,
Just B?
yes.
Well, B makes the most sense because that's the least interruption to the kids.
Minus this situation with the football field and the tennis courts.
And other things.
Yes, yes. Well, that's my my question. If Kara, are you finished or do you have other questions?
You can go ahead, Cheryl. Thanks.
Okay, so people can be a little, territorial and proud of their sports teams and want to have things on their home turf. we know this is a temporary thing. So I'm a little confused. Initially, I know there were some talks of Nathan Hale, All Saints, or Brian McMahon, but it sounds like West Rocks is now a consideration for sports or for football.
Not for football. Go
So
ahead.
I'm sorry, what was West Rocks being used for?
Track?
I'll clarify, Ms. Harris. So what I have kind of sketched out for right now would be that we would have football practice, field hockey practice at Nathan Hale, upper field and lower field.
Okay.
We would move our soccer program, boys and girls, to West Rocks. There simply isn't enough time every day to have 3 different programs practicing at Nathan Hale lower field. So I figure if I moved the soccer programs to those fields at West Rocks, hopefully it would alleviate some space and still allow potentially for some community use when we're finished with those fields, let's say at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. We can play games, field hockey and soccer games at Nathan Hale. Football games would have to be played at Brian McMahon, simply because of the crowds and parking. The biggest issue we would run into at Nathan Hale, parking is an issue. When our baseball team plays there, we work really hard with the Nathan Hale administration when they have end of the year events, graduations, award nights, whatever, to make sure that we don't schedule a game that night because there simply wouldn't be enough parking. So if we were, able to secure West Rocks as a facility for our boys and girls soccer program with the corresponding transportation, and we've already had discussions with Joanna about getting our athletes from Norwalk High School to West Rocks and back. And Ms. Bakey, as you indicated, some kids who can drive could drive, and those that don't have transportation, we would have to provide it. That would allow us to pretty much keep everybody else at Nathan Hale upper field and lower field with some potential modifications. For example, the upper field at Nathan Hale right now is lined for soccer, not for field hockey. We might have to put some temporary field hockey lines on that upper field. But that's the plan for right now. And again, knowing full well that, it may impact coaches, it may impact athletes. Coaches may say, hey, Mr. Marchetti, I can't coach under these circumstances. I'm going to step away. And athletes may decide to go in another direction if they know they have to practice off-site. But, the way I'm looking at it, it's temporary. It's 3, 4, 5 years, and distasteful. It's not easy. Absolutely not. But when you look at the big picture in terms of, the possibility of constructing a new building that will be in place for many years, if it's a community effort and people are willing to give and take, and there's some compromise, I think we could make it work potentially.
And then I think I heard, and thank you for that. I think that I heard that you would have like the signage so that it would feel like it's Norwalk High with your, okay. Can you talk a little bit about that? So there, I think it's one of the New England football teams that share a field, but they have the signage for each one. I guess it's done digitally. So I don't know, like if games were at Brian McMahon, would the signage still be for Brian McMahon, or would we be able to have some switch off so that it can say Norwalk High?
I'm sure if I work with Mr. Cross, we can come up with some ways to make it as Norwalk High home as we could make it. I don't think we're going to change the M on the center of the field, but there's other things that we can do on the field. Yes.
Okay.
And John and I have a great relationship, Ms. Harris, and I'm sure we can work very well together to make things like that happen.
And I'm just thinking, everybody likes, and it is temporary, and I do understand that sometimes you have to give a little to get a little. But, kids are kids and they like being on their home turf. So if we can make it, as Norwalk High as possible, that would be great.
I agree. Absolutely.
I say we stay on the sports topic right now. So if any other questions. For me, the sports topic, I have several, but the question for me is probably for Joanna. Have we looked at how many buses we need to add to the fleet? And also, will the city be paying for that? Because, you know, the Board of Education budget is so tight right now, because that's an added expense.
So Doug and I have met and gone over the schedule. The biggest impact is going to be fall and spring sports. Winter sports won't be affected. It's 3 to maybe 4 days a week if necessary to transport them. I have been in negotiations with a local vendor that we use for other services to be able to provide that transportation outside of Durham School Services. At that time during the day, they're home to school services that we need to provide. In addition to that, the athletic games where they need to transport. So we're staying away from using our type 1 vendor, Durham, and using another local vendor that can provide that service without interruption. And the city would be, or the project would be covering the additional cost.
Do we have an idea how many buses yet?
It looks like maybe 1 or 2. We will be shuttling on some specific days between boys and girls soccer. And so, you know, I can't see any more than 2 buses if necessary. We can always shuttle because these buses will be available to us. They won't have any other work that they're performing.
So when you say, sorry, Dan, I just want to clarify something. When you say the cost will be covered by the project, does that mean there's a line item within the project budget to cover busing for 4 years?
Alan would be.
We will have a line item to cover all these transportation costs.
And do you have any kind of an estimate?
No, we don't. Once we develop the strategy, we will start putting a price tag on how much it costs for 4 year of busing, different program where it is. I think one advantage of West Rock, it's close by, a short distance, potentially it's almost like a shuttle back and forth. So in case some kids are late, they can catch the next one over. Kind of, it's not that far away. I think there's some benefit being proximity, and then also there are 2 fields there, so there's more maneuverability. I guess I wouldn't mind. I haven't approached. We are trying to reach out to All Saints, but at the same time, we want to approach them to see whether we can potentially lease some fuel from them, so that we can add to the whole complex for our use. So again, we don't know what to do yet until we get a further determination how we are going to manage the whole utilization of different fuels and what are the options available to us are. So we are keeping that as an option to potentially lease a track or the fuel from or 1 or 2 fuel from if they're interested to lease it from All Saints.
Yeah, and just thinking about the transportation needs, we just have to keep in mind that we have to get an adequate number of buses, because as it is, we're pretty tight, especially in the afternoon schedules with teams having to go to different sites out of the district. So we would probably have to add a number of buses to our fleet in order to accommodate this. So we just want to make sure we keep that in mind.
I think we believe that we are talking about getting outside of those buses, dedicated bus just for this purpose.
Right.
No,
So
I understand that, but there's an associated cost with that, just being cognizant of that additional cost.
Right. And that's, you know, my concern. And on top of that, how about the liability? Because now we don't have the children at the school. So is there an increase in liability insurance because now we have to bus them to different places? Is that an increase?
as far as the transportation is concerned, no, there's no liability increased cost for transporting.
Even though we're using a different company with added busing?
Yeah.
The company would provide the liability insurance.
Right. We're currently using this company to do some other work. So they're already insured. We already have that insurance under them.
And so is it fair to say that any of the costs associated with this busing program would be coming out of the construction budget?
Yes.
And we don't know what that number looks like. Like, is it hundreds of
we don't know what the
thousands?
number
Is it a couple of million? Like,
we're still in negotiations with the company. So
that's,
because we're going forward and it's not going to be happening next year, with the industry and fluctuating with their costs, they can give me a guesstimate. but we haven't finalized that deal yet.
But I also think that that number is going to be dependent, Kara, with the number of routes needed and the amount of actual buses that it will require to meet the routes
So we're
created based on the site.
right. So we're Doug and I, when we met, we discussed that, and we're talking about, you know, maybe 1 or 2 buses per team on a 3 to 4 day basis, and possibly shuttling. So we'll work with the vendor to, you know, keep the costs down as much as possible, and it will not come out of our operating budget because it'll come out of the construction project.
How can that affect the construction project if it's, you know, a good enough number? What would you be looking to outweigh there?
No, Alan, that question for you.
I don't understand the question.
Well, right now, we're not looking at that dollar amount. We don't have a dollar amount. But what would change in your plan if that dollar amount was big enough that you had to dip into something else, take something out of that, out of your plan?
We do have a contingency in place, you know, where obviously not knowing the final number or the estimate, I would I would imagine our contingency should be more than enough to cover that.
Okay. Colin?
I didn't have any specific questions about the athletics.
Okay.
I just
Go ahead.
Well, I do have a follow-up question about the athletics, something real quick. Just with the pool. So the ad or the ad alternate, is that going to be an additional cost if we don't, would it be more to do the ad alternate than to do the pool up front? So if we were able to secure money, would that keep the cost down?
The plan right now is to build a pool as part of this project. So we're designing, we're including in it, and we are looking at a way to finance it. Between the state, the city, and potential private donor, we will make it work somehow. So our goal, the pool is in the project. It's just a financial strategy to get it done. So.
But what does that mean? A financial strategy. So the ad alternate doesn't mean anything. It's still the same exact cost, regardless of whether.
I mean, yeah, the cost is about $8 to $9 million.
Mm-hmm.
We will find money to figure this out. So the budget that the state put together, $189 billion, it's not in there. But at the same time, we will figure some way. The city funded $50 million for this project, based on $225 million project. But the state only approved $189 million. So we have potentially enough money to do it, but we're not ready to say that yet. That's the problem. So that's why we call it, again, lack of a better word, we call alternate. Doesn't mean that we're not including it. It's just that we are including every bit of it. We're including design. So every time you look at a design, the pool is in there. It's as we continue to move forward the project, we figure out how much we are short and where the money's coming from. And it's I know it sounds like I'm kind of avoiding your question, but at the same time, it's we have every intention of we are building it. Bottom line, it's just figure out how the money, we just had to figure the money out. Jim, I don't know. Can you explain it better?
Yeah, the city's committed to doing it.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
I mean, so yeah, again, as Alan stated, the final financing of that still has to be worked out, but they're committed to move forward with a pool.
Doug, this one's for you. Have you thought, or has there been any conversations on the lifeguarding program, the gym classes that you have, the swim team, the dive team, like where are they going? What are your plans? What's going on with that?
At this point, we would have to hope that a pool would be included within the new building some way, somehow. I don't foresee any way there's any other facility in the city we could use to maintain a physical education program, lifeguarding program, et cetera, et cetera. The only public pool that I'm aware of still in the city that's operational is owned by Velocity, which is on Westport Avenue behind the CVS. But that's a private entity. That's, you can rent it out. We've done that in the past if we've had pool issues here. It's not an inexpensive proposition. And again, they run their own programming there. So you'd be a guest or a renter within their facility. Busing kids there for a phys ed class, I don't think would be feasible. Using it for swim team practices and meets on a daily basis, that could be not very cost effective. So I think the pool really, and I understand that the financial piece, the pool really needs to be a no-brainer as part of this project, by hook or by crook. To have to eliminate a girls swim program, a boys swim program, a learn to swim program within the city through the Recreation and Parks Department, a lifeguarding and aquatic fundamentals classes that we offer as part of the physical education class. I'm teaching the lifeguarding class now. I probably have over 2 classes. I probably have close to 40 potential lifeguards in that class. And I will tell you, due to COVID over the last couple of years, there is a huge need for lifeguards because classes were not offered during COVID. And those college kids that kind of aged out and moved on another direction, places are dying for lifeguards. So I've kind of told the kids in the class, listen, if you play your cards right, I could almost guarantee you a job somewhere locally this summer, if you do a good job. So that's something I would really, really hate to see go, Diana. And if the pool were not part of the project, to be honest with you, I haven't thought about it because I really don't see what another option would be. I hate to be negative about it, but I really think that there's no other option at this point.
Well, my point too is, so we have athletes now that are swim team and divers, so they're not going to be able to compete at all or do moving forward unless they go to another school or go private. So that's one. And
Yep.
2 is, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, that the community, a lot of these families have their child get certified through the school system, which is a very expensive certification out of pocket if you try to do it, on your own. So there alone, you're cutting more kids that can become lifeguards because of the financial burden to the families.
Exactly. Of course, now, if you were to go out and if you were to look on a Red Cross website or look at other facilities that offer a lifeguarding class, it's probably, my guess would be somewhere between $425 and $600 for the course,
Correct.
which a lot of our kids would never be able to afford. And when they take it through the physical education program, and that's the huge selling point for me, you get your physical education credit, number 1, and you get the course at no charge, number 2. So it's really a win-win for our kids. And it's always been heartwarming to me where I've gone to facilities when I coached the swim team a few years ago, or kids come back and they see me. I had a young man one time, we were swimming at the New Canaan YMCA. Mr. Marchetti, you put me through college. I said, what do you mean? He said, I took your class and I didn't want to be in your class, but it was the only one available. And I got certified as a lifeguard and I worked my way through NCC, working as a lifeguard at the New Canaan YMCA. And if it wasn't for you, I never would have made it through college. So we had a nice laugh about it. But it's one of those stories that as an educator, when you see your kids, do something really positive and they take the time to seek you out and find you on the pool deck to tell you that, it's really terrific. And I'm sure there's plenty of, Diana, full disclosure, I had your son Ethan in class and I know he's worked and he did a fantastic job and I'm sure he's doing well.
I was going to say, that concern for other families is a very personal one. Being a single mom, there was no way that I was going to be able to afford $500 and $600. And what does my son do now? He worked as a lifeguard here in Norwalk, swim instructor for children, is going to the University of Rhode Island and is working as a lifeguard and a swim instructor for children there. And guess what, Mr. Marchetti? They want to meet you because he is one of their favorite teachers up there. So
That's great to hear. Thank you, Diana. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
May I?
yeah. Well, before you go,
very quickly.
hold on. And the increase of, even if we kept the athletes, like Doug said, the increase in fees if we had to rent a space is another expense that our budget can't hold. So that's something else that we have to think about. Sorry, Alan, go ahead.
No, that's quite all right. No. I think a couple of things. Again, I just want everybody to understand that I'm not here to sell the board or the city anything. I'm here to provide technical information how this board and the council can make decisions. I don't mean it that way either, but you know what I mean. So for in recent years, I think we went through a lot of different issues with the pool. I think Bill, there's some structural problem with the pool. The pool is just to the point that we spent, I don't know how much, couple $100,000 maybe, mechanical system and structural issues and stuff like that. We solved some of the problems, but overall, the pool continued to be a problem in the long run. The proposal in front of us, again, I'm not here to sell you one or the other. I just wanted to state the fact. On option one, we are building the pool. I mean, that is the plan. So I mean, again, the pools are a part of the project. So with option one, the problem is that we have to tear down the existing pool before we build the next new one. So there is about a year and a half of no pool under option one. Option two is that we're going to build a new building with the pool in it, and the pool will stay operation for the length of the time, construction of the new phase two project. So after we finish the building, after we finish the building with the pool, then everything, all the students, including the pool program and gym program, everything will go to a new building before we tear down the existing building. So there's no disruption in education as well as recreation, indoor recreation program for the building. For option one, there are impacts. We haven't really gotten to detail of it because we're going to lose the auxiliary gym and other things within the building. But there's a lot of detailed impact on operation of the building. So again, the pool will be continued without disruption. We would take option B because the new pool will be built before we tear down the old one.
That's assuming that we have the funds for the pool in Plan B. Any other questions?
I was going to kind of make a suggestion, Diana. I don't know if this is the appropriate time. It's
Sure.
Definitely I'm so glad to hear Alan's kind of reaffirm that commitment to the pool. We've heard among our board members and council members, and certainly a lot of community feedback that would be almost a deal breaker. And I think we all agree that it's an important part of building a new school is to have a new state-of-the-art pool as well. And I think it's important that we have had that opportunity. I know, Alan, when we got together last time, we mentioned that it would be so important and helpful to get additional opportunities for public feedback. And I'm grateful for the forums that we were able to schedule. And we've heard from a lot of members of the public, part of the school community, the neighbors, and so on. I think it's been very helpful. That said, this is still a really monumental decision. We know that both options, I know you're not here to sell us anything, but they have their ups and downs. And there's a lot of moving parts to each one, including our athletic plan and how that has implications for transportation costs and so forth. So the suggestion I was going to make was that we as a committee move both these options forward to the full board at our March board meeting in 2 weeks, and that we as a board make that selection at that time. That gives us, a couple extra weeks to kind of nail down some of these still open questions with regard to where exactly our sports teams, how we'll figure that out. you know, it'll also be an opportunity for more members of the public to weigh in. I agree with Kara that, more is better when it comes to community engagement. We weren't able to add public comment to this special meeting, but we will have public comment at our March board meeting. And, I always think it's helpful to us as board members to have members of the community involved in that part of the process. I think for me personally, these are good problems to have, right? We're talking about the different kind of implications that it'll be involved in building a brand new high school, which is going to be paid for 80% by the state. That's these are good problems to have, and I imagine we'll be able to work them out. My suggestion to kind of help us do so in as smooth a way as possible is to move both options forward and have the full board vote.
Anybody else have a comment with that?
I think that's helpful.
Yeah, I agree with that proposal. I think that we need more time here, and there's a lot to consider, and I feel like there's still a lot of unanswered questions.
I agree also, there's a lot of unanswered questions and we still need a lot of information because this is a big decision that we have to decide on, and giving, everyone 2 weeks to be able to nail down more information, give us more answers, and for us to put together more questions, right? Because it's going to continue and we're going to think about it. And I know Alan Lowe is laughing over there going, oh dear
I said
Lord.
more questions. Oh no, more questions.
And I want to say, I think, I don't think we'll be able to answer every single question in a couple of weeks, right? Clearly, as we heard, some of these questions about the traffic studies in particular will only come after they've actually done the traffic study. Although I really appreciate the work that's already been done, as Jim said, to get that 7.5 option. I get the impression that the team is listening to the feedback, and I'm grateful for that. Doug, we've already done some fantastic work figuring out what our sports teams will be able to do. If we can kind of just nail down a couple more details of that, I think it'll be really, really helpful for us to make that decision.
Alan, do you think you'll be able to speak to the parents on King Street prior to our next meeting, or is that too soon?
Sherelle, I hate to tell you this. Tyler has emailed me as we have this meeting. So Tyler is one of the neighbors across the street. He's emailed me as I'm talking over here. And
is that Tyler?
I will reach out to him.
Okay.
I will reach out to him and I'll ask him to get some of his neighbors together. We can sit down to go over these plans together. And we will find a solution. They are our neighbors, and we have every responsibility. Again, don't get me wrong. I think we will always want to keep a driveway open, as Jim mentioned before, for emergency vehicle, because it's for public safety and access in case of emergency. We need to be able to get emergency vehicle on the property, and that gives us another weight into the property. And I hope he understands that. I think that's a minimum we need. I think we can meet everything else. There is, again, like we said before, there's some internal circulation things that we need to resolve. It's not going to be perfect for us. I got to tell you that much. It's the preference is actually have the buses coming on the street. If not, we can solve it. We can keep the buses within the property, and that's what it takes, and we will do it. So I don't think that again. Tyler, you probably can hear me right now, so call you tomorrow as soon as I have a chance, and we can sit down, get some of your neighbors together. We'll look at all these plans we have. We will take your suggestions and whatever, and we'll work together as a team to figure it out. We don't want to impact the public safety along King Street. We have no interest of doing that. We are trying to. The original plan that we have on option B is to reduce it, kind of have a little more balance on the property. There's more egress points so that we don't put all the traffic on County Street or Strawberry Hill. That was our goal. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So there's no issues here. We will resolve this. Okay. I just want to. I think pardon me, Diane. I think we're almost done, but I just want to thank Doug for his support. I didn't twist his arm or anything, but he came to the table, fully willing to help all of us, the city and the Board of Education. At the end of the day, the city and the Board of Education made the decision to build a new building on this property. There comes with many challenges, many challenges. And me and Doug has a long journey to go together. We may have to retire before we get there, but but it is a challenge, good challenges, like we said. I mean, it's typically we get 32% or new building 22.23% reimbursement. This building is estimated $225 million overall construction costs, but let's just say at $820 million, the additional reimbursement is worth about $120 million. It's something that I don't think the city can afford any time in the near future. You look at back in the 70s when we built this school, we were able to find this location plus Andrews Field. That's just by itself is like 22 acres of property without Andrews Field. But we're going to look for another piece of property. We got to look for another property that's big enough to support a baseball field, which we don't have right now on the property. Plus the parking, that surface property, we have, parking that we have in Andrews Field. And if you look at our plans right now for option B or both options, besides the athletic facility, there's no open space left. We are that tight on the property. So it's not, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of design. If we are looking for new property, we have to look about 30 acres. I'm not exaggerating. So we actually did some calculation of square footage and everything, what we have and stuff. It's substantial. I mean, if we can't find property in the 70s, we can find it in 2000. They definitely won't find it in another 20 years from now. So those are the reality that we face in terms of building a new school. I had one council member said at a council meeting a long time ago, probably like 10 years ago, he was in Bridgeport and New Haven, drive by and saw the new school that was built in a different community. And he came to the middle of a council meeting and made the point that, why does the city not build new schools? Because we'd only get 22 to 30% reimbursement, while the other community potentially get up to 80% reimbursement. So it is a very challenging thing that we are here to look at improve our school infrastructure and build new school is part of the plan. We did a new addition to Ponus. We have renovated a new at Jefferson, and we're looking to build a new Cranberry School. And the next one, as we're planning here, is Norwalk High School. We're also looking at upcoming South Norwalk School. So those are a new building we're building. But there's a great deal of challenges when you do a new school and exist in Norwalk because land is premium. Even if we want to buy it, there isn't that kind of land available in urban areas. So I just want to leave it with that. And again, thank you, Doug, for all your support, and also John from Brian McMahon High School. Again, our challenge is to continue to find solutions to all this issue with all the difficulty about bringing kids around. Make sure that they have to the extent they feel home court feeling to do wherever they play. I think it's very important, and we will do everything we can to make it work for athletes and the school. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I would hate to cut everybody short. I know everybody's running for meetings. I have a 6 o'clock too. I wanted to thank everybody for all their time and dedication, for being here tonight and all the work for all these months with this plan. But I would like to have a motion. Well, actually, we can just vote that we move both plans, A and B, to the full board. Raise your hands or say aye.
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 Okay, so that's unanimous.
Thank you
See
very much.
everybody at the business meeting then with the plan. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
See everybody at the next meeting.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you all. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
Good
Thank you.
night.